Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Shurdan, and we got an awesome episode of the Comedy Podcast for you today. I was in London recently, and I went to this thing. It wasn't really a comedy show. It was more like a talk. But there were 4 comedians, and they were talking about things like freedom of speech and where do you draw the line and social justice and all this stuff. And I said, I got to get these 4 funny English guys to sit down and talk on the Comedy Podcast. So I got these guys to sit down, and I said, let's do like a whole Comedy Podcast episode where we talk about freedom of speech, because some of these guys have been doing stuff about freedom of speech and social justice for a long time. Like some of these guys have been doing it for like 6 months. So I said, I got to get these guys to sit down and talk on the Comedy Podcast. They agreed to do it. It is so awesome. This is part 3 of that interview. Unfortunately, I lost parts 1 and 2 because I don't think I'm using the best software in the world. I don't know what's going on. But hey, luckily, I do a lot of software jokes in my set, Rick Shurdan's set. So maybe, who knows, maybe I'll get a software company to sponsor me. I don't know. But anyway, that's enough of my jibber-jabbering. Let's get to the Comedy Podcast with 4 funny guys talking about freedom of speech.
For me to do this joke about Charles I getting beheaded.
Yeah.
When in the front row, I've got a father with a 7-year-old son who is only a head.
Oh, man.
And you make that decision. I think you make that decision as a comedian then and there.
Yeah.
Where does free speech cross that line into offense?
Offense, yeah.
That's a good question. And when you bring that, I think of a gig that I did in Chaldington. There was a lady came in, she actually came up to me in form, and she said, "You're not going to do any jokes about people who have rashes on their bottom, are you?" And I said, I don't know. I mean, you don't think. And then all of a sudden, when you're on stage, when you're in that moment, when you're in that comedy moment, and you think, "Oh, that's right, I've got a 7-minute bit about people who've got rashes on their bottom. Do I lose that, or do I keep going?" And if I do that joke, am I prepared to own that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was in America recently, and what I find fascinating about American comedians, they're really not afraid. I think in England, I think you kind of grow up with this kill yourself. The moment you're born in England, the message is die. Put a fork in a socket, throw a toaster in the bathtub just do something to end it now.
End it,
And in America, it's completely opposite. There is this notion in America, live. All of the adverts there say, live, buy this, it's nice. We want nice things. And that's what I really do prefer, in many ways, gigging in America. Because you can go out there and say, I'm alive. I'm living. Here, the message is just like, because we've got the aristocracy and the kings, and there is that message that if you're not born into the aristocracy, here's the razor blade. And just to follow up with that, because the show, we do a lot of shows, Grim Giggles.
Oh yeah.
You want to do something much darker. So it was,
because it is dark.
That was the whole thing. Was take something that is verboten. That you're not supposed to talk about and talk about it. Like Madeleine McCann, just anyone Frankie Boyle does. But do it as somebody who's not Frankie Boyle, and that was the challenge. You would take Frankie Boyle's set. I mean, that was the way it was described to me, because when people, they said, "Well, would you like to do Grim Giggles?" And I said, "What's the show about? Is it not a regular show?" And they explained it to me, and I said, "Like Frankie Boyle." And they were getting a bit red-faced, like they didn't want to quite admit that's what it was. But it turned out that's what it was. And he said, but that was the challenge. How do you go out there as somebody who's not Frankie Boyle and do the Frankie Boyle stuff? Is it possible?
I mean, I think, I mean, that's because I don't have a Scottish accent, and I'm not well known as Frankie Boyle, but I do have stuff about dead babies and girls from Essex, and the coats they wear and things like that.
I do too.
But if I were to go out there and do it like that, would that sort of negate that?
Well, that's again we get to freedom of speech.
Oh, freedom of speech.
Yeah. You must have seen Count Dankula.
Oh yeah.
He taught the dog to read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. He said he actually sent the dog to Israel.
Yeah.
From what I met, very smart dog. Taught the dog to go to Israel.
Yeah.
Learn how to use Kalashnikovs and rocket launchers. The dog joined up with Hamas.
Yeah.
And the dog is still there. The dog is still there fighting.
Still fighting. Yeah.
Now it's clear that this is satire.
Oh yeah.
I mean, clearly it's satire. But you try explaining that to the Metropolitan Police.
Oh yeah.
And that I think is something that not just comedians.
Oh yeah.
But people who make dream catchers.
Oh yeah.
People who work in clay.
Yeah.
Any artist should be very concerned about.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, guys, this has been an awesome episode of the Comedy Podcast. Thank you so much for doing this interview. And thank you guys for listening to the Comedy Podcast. I'm Rick Shurdan. I've been your host. If you want to support the Comedy Podcast, please go to patreon.com/Will Franken. Again, don't ask me what that has to do with me, Rick Shurdan, and the Comedy Podcast. But hey, guys, there's only one rule here. Comedy on.